Hi, I'm Amy Romeo of Amy Romeo Crafts, and today in this video I'll be showing you how to make this really fun and festive holiday camper Christmas tree ornament using faux leather, heat transfer vinyl, and a Cricut. So if you're ready to learn how to make this project, let's go ahead and get started. The SVG file for this project is available in my shop. It's part of my holiday faux leather crafting event where I'm sharing a brand new holiday SVG and video tutorial every day for 20 days. I'll leave a link on the screen for you so you can get the SVG, or you can visit amyromeo.com/holiday to see all of the event's designs. Let's go over the tools and materials I'll be using to make this project. I'll be using the Cricut Maker today, but you can use any of the current Cricut machines because I'm using the standard fine point blade to cut the faux leather, and that blade is included on all the current Cricut machines. So this ornament has two elements. The bottom is a faux leather layer that will create the structure of the ornament, and then we'll be decorating with different types of heat transfer vinyl. So the faux leather that I'm using for the bottom of the vintage camper is kind of a plaid, and I'll link to some of my favorite plaid faux leathers, and I'll have all the supplies linked for you for your convenience. But keep in mind, if you don't want to use a print, you could definitely use a solid too in the color of your choice. To apply the heat transfer vinyls to the faux leather, I'll be using my Easy Press Mini on the low setting, which is that one green line at the bottom. You could also use a regular Easy Press, but this project does have a lot of small detailed pieces, so I recommend having a small press like the Easy Press Mini if possible. I'll be using the purple strong grip cutting mat to cut the faux leather and the green standard grip mat to cut the heat transfer vinyl. If you're using either of the Cricut Joys for this project, you can use the Joy size mats and they will cut faux leather just fine. I'll also be using some blue painter's tape to tape my faux leather down to the purple mat. I'll be using a weeding tool. I like to have a hook and a pin pen, but you can use whatever weeding tool you prefer. I have some craft scissors as well, and I really like having these curved scissors. You could also use embroidery scissors. These are great for little tiny detail cuts or trimming the edges of the faux leather if they get little fuzzies on them. I also have a heat pressing pad to protect my surface, and then I'm going to use a cover sheet. This is a large t-shirt size Teflon sheet that I've trimmed down to size, but you could also use butcher paper or parchment paper. To glue the front and the back of the ornament together, I'll be using some fabric glue, Fabri-Tac. You can use any good fabric glue or even a craft glue like Bearly Art Glue. And I have a really great trick to show you how to get a really nice seal and a good glue bond between the two layers of faux leather when we get to that part of the video. Finally, I'll use some craft ribbon to create my hanger for my ornament. So let's hop into Design Space and we'll start to prepare our mats to cut, and then we'll assemble our ornament. Starting with a blank canvas in Cricut Design Space, you'll click on Upload and then Upload Image, and you'll browse to where the unzipped SVG file is for this project. Click on it to select it and then click Open. And you'll see a preview of the front and the back of the ornament in Design Space. Click on Upload. And then it will appear here in your Recent Uploads row. Click on it to select it and then click Add to Canvas. So let me show you quickly what the different layers are on our design here. So the bottom sort of darker red layer, that is going to cut from faux leather. There's a front and there's a back. I'm going to show you how I'm going to cut the front from plaid, and I'm going to cut the back from white because I don't want to waste my really pretty plaid material on the back. But both of those dark red layers are faux leather layers. Everything else will cut from heat transfer vinyl. So I'll show you as we're going through and cutting. You can use the colors of your choice. You can use glitters, you can use solids. My caution would be some of these little light bulbs are very small, so if you're using glitter heat transfer vinyl, they will be more challenging to weed and keep track of than if you're using regular heat transfer vinyl. But the choice is completely up to you. I'm not going to resize it. It's sized perfectly for an ornament, and if you make this any smaller, it will be more difficult to make. So I'll click the Make It button, and I'm cutting my materials on a mat. And the first thing I want to do is go through each mat here in my mat preview screen and toggle that mirror button on. Now, if you wanted to use permanent vinyl for this project, you could. You just would not mirror those mats. Those mats would cut right side up. So now that I've mirrored my mats, I'm just going to go back through. I like to drag my shapes a little bit away from the edges And if there are two shapes on the same mat, I like to drag them apart from each other a little bit. On a mat like this, for example, all three of these shapes are going to cut from the same material, and I've grouped them so that when you cut this shape out and you weed away the excess vinyl, you'll be able to place all three shapes down on the design and they will press and be in the perfect spot. So when you cut this layer, for example, with these grouped shapes, don't cut the shapes apart. Leave all of them together. So here on the faux leather mat, I said I wanted to show you how I'm going to cut the front from the pretty plaid and the back from the white, because we're not going to see it. So here our mat is mirrored, so that means this one here on the bottom is the front. We'll cut this one from the plaid, and this one we will cut from white. So the way I'm going to do that is just drag my shapes apart on my mat so they're in two different spots, and here I will cut a piece of white faux leather that's 4 inches tall and 6 inches wide, and here I'll cut the same size piece in plaid, and I'll put that one over here. When these cut out, remember they will cut in reverse, so you're essentially seeing the back of the shape, and when we cut it out it will be right side up and the print will be on the outside. So I like to cut the faux leather mat first. Let's click on continue. And the faux leather mat, I like to use the faux leather paper thin setting with more pressure. If you don't have this material setting as bookmarked as a favorite like I do, you can click on browse all materials and search for it. Remember, if you're using your Explorer Air 2, you'll need to turn your dial to custom before you can find this setting in search. So the faux leather mat, I will cut faux leather paper thin, more pressure. All of the vinyl mats I will cut according to the manufacturer's recommended cut settings for that material. So you might be using glitter heat transfer vinyl or regular heat transfer vinyl or foil iron-on, and you'll just use the corresponding setting. So let's hop back over to my overhead camera and we'll start to cut out our mats, and then we'll put together the ornament. So I've already trimmed my faux leathers down to the size I saw in the mat preview screen, and I'm going to place them pretty side down. This one, remember, I moved the front shape to the right and the back shape is on the left. I'm going to press these down really well with my hands and my fingers, and then I'm going to use some blue painter's tape and I'm going to tape around on all sides. Keep in mind that blue painter's tape can be peeled up from the mat and saved and reused for the next time you cut faux leather. So we have our faux leather paper thin setting all ready to go, so we'll load the mat and begin the cut. So the cut has run one time, and before you unload the mat, it's important to check to see if the cut went all the way through. So I'm using my sharp weeding tool and I'm just lifting up the edge of my faux leather cut here. If it looks like it's still sticking down to the faux leather, that's totally fine. Just press that cut button again. You can do that as many times as necessary as long as you have not unloaded your mat. If you're using the Cricut Joy, the option to rerun will be on your screen in Design Space. But these shapes look good, so I'll go ahead and unload the mat. We'll remove our shapes. So there's our front, and this will be the back, which we will glue together after we apply our heat transfer vinyl decoration. So now I'm going to return to Design Space and cut out all of the vinyl mats, and then I will weed them out, and then I'll show you how we layer the different vinyl layers to press onto our little camper. Also, check your download folder for the SVG. I also have what's called a layering guide. It's a graphic that shows you what order to press the different vinyl layers in to make this project easy for you. Okay, so I've cut out all of the vinyl shapes, and I did end up cutting most of the light layers and like the tree from glitter heat transfer vinyl because I thought that would be a really fun sparkle. And also I wanted to show you that you can cut it very easily. The shapes are tiny, but they will cut nicely out of glitter if that's what you prefer. So 2 tips before we get started layering all of these together. I recommend pulling up the original SVG in Design Space while you're layering, just so you can refer back to it and remind yourself of where these little shapes go. And also remember that layering guide that I have in the download folder for you will help. So the most important layer that we need to do first is the white layer. And then a lot of these layers you'll be able to do in any order, like putting the Christmas lights on, but there are a few that are important to go first, and we'll do those now. So the white layer, I grouped the little white tire circle for you. So the little tire circle should pop into place right at the bottom of the tire shape. And then this is going to be the base, and we're going to build all of our other layers on top of this. So I'm going to cover with my little heat pressing pad, and now I want to use my Easy Press Mini, and I want to press all over for about 10 seconds. And it's important that you get every area of this layer pressed for 10 seconds. So I've pressed all over for 10 seconds. Remember to do that little wheel part 2. And then you want to hold your faux leather flat and very gently and slowly peel away. And you want to do this slowly because if your vinyl lifts up, you can just place that cover sheet right back down and press some more. This looks good. There we go. Then the next layer that I want to do is the little door and the window and the tire. And remember, I grouped all these together. What I did was if shapes were very close together, I grouped them. If they were far apart and it was going to require a very large piece of vinyl to cut the 2 shapes, for example, the black layer, which is up here and down here, then I'd separated those shapes for you. So this one, we're just going to match up that tire, a little circle in the tire. And we'll press again. Again, we'll remove that little cover sheet and carefully peel away the clear liner protecting the vinyl. There we go. Now we'll do the black layer. So we've got the tire, or the little tire will go right on that spot. So it's basically touching the bottom of the faux leather, and the little silver tire inside should be centered inside the little tire, the black tire layer. Every layer, just very slowly and carefully remove that cover sheet so you can always drop it back down if you need to, and repress. So the next layer we want to do is the Christmas light strings, and this layer, all of these outer edges will match up with the outer edge of the camper, and then this little spot in the middle will match up with the hole. So just take your time, get it in the right spot. There we go, and then we'll press. There we go. Now I'm going to do the Christmas tree. Basically, I'm doing all of the layers that I know easily where they go. I'll do the lights last, and for those layers, I'll be referring back to my screen in Design Space. Now I'm going to add the garland layer to the tree, and I wanted to mention, if you're accustomed to making apparel with vinyl, when making apparel, you know that we don't want to layer glitter vinyl on top of glitter vinyl, but because this is an ornament and it won't be getting heavy use or being washed, it's perfectly fine in this case to layer these 2 glitter layers on top of each other. There we go. Now I'm going to put the wreath on that little hole in the door. And that's how it's looking so far. So now we're just going to start layering our lights, and I'm going to do the red layer first, and that's because this little middle light is sort of cut, and that's because this goes right where the hole is. So again, I like to do layers that I know where they go easily before I start to struggle trying to figure out what goes where. See with that one, that little tiny cut light fits right where the hole is, and then these two pop into place. Now referring back to Design Space, I see that the next light is green, so I'll apply that layer next. So just take your time and get one light in position and then line all the others up before you press. I looked and I saw that the blue light bulb was the first one on this side, so now I'm doing the blue layer. And we'll finally do the yellow light bulb layer last. One of the things that I really like about using the Easy Press Mini is I'm able to sort of use this front edge of the Easy Press to press a very small area without having the rest of the design be exposed to the entire heating element. So here I'm just sort of using the tip of the Easy Press Mini to just get that little light bulb. And the reason I'm doing that is because heat transfer vinyl will shrink. So what's happening now, and I'll show you when I remove this cover sheet, is the white layer of heat transfer vinyl is starting to shrink a little bit at the top, and we're seeing the plaid layer, which is fine. If you don't like that, you can always trim it with curved scissors. Here, let me take this off and I'll show you what I mean. There we go. So up here, I've applied heat so many times that the white has started to shrink and pull away from the top. So you just see a little teeny tiny part of the plaid sticking out. Again, no big deal, but whenever possible, I love using the Easy Press Mini because I can sort of target any small areas without always pressing over and over all the way on all of the layers, which would cause them to shrink more. So we've pressed all of our layers, and this little ornament is pretty warm and I want it to cool nice and flat before we glue. So I'm going to just place it here on my work surface and put my heat pressing pad on top while I get my glue ready. Also, I mentioned that I had a trick for getting these ornaments nice and flat. And to do that, we're going to use a heavy book. So I'm going to flip my ornament over. And I want to apply glue on just one side of the ornament. I'll do it here on the back. You want to get the glue close to the edge, but not all the way to the edge, because when we press the layers between the book, the glue will naturally seep to the edge a little bit, which is exactly what we want. That's going to help seal that edge. If we get too close to the edge, then the glue will seep out, which is okay, but it's not ideal. I'm just applying my glue all over the back. Remember, you can use any fabric glue you have on hand or a good craft glue. Make sure you get up and around that little hole. There we go. Now we'll just take the front of the ornament, apply it to the back. And remember, I did this because the plaid sheet of faux leather, I don't want to waste it on the back, so I can always cut another little camper ornament using that same sheet of plaid. And all I'm doing is lining up the edges, lining up the hole, you know, making sure that the edges are neat and I don't see that back layer. And that looks great. This spot on the back, if you wanted, you could cut a layer of heat transfer vinyl. You could write your family name, you could write the year, whatever you wanted. So that looks really cute. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to place this underneath our heavy book, and I'm going to leave it there for about an hour to let it dry. It'll dry nice and flat with very tight edges. And then we'll attach our little ribbon for hanging. So our ornament has been drying flat underneath our heavy book for about an hour. I did take the book off about 5 minutes in just to see if I needed to wipe away any of the glue on the edges, but it looks like no glue seeped out. And you can see that the ornament is a lot stiffer. It's not as floppy as it was when it was faux leather. And I'm going to show you how I attach a ribbon, a little hanging ribbon now, but I would recommend leaving this underneath your heavy book for a few hours if you can to really let it dry nice and flat. So I've just cut a piece of 3/8 inch craft ribbon, just cut it to about 16 inches long. There are lots of different ways that you can do this, but I'm going to show you just an easy way that I do it. So I'm going to take my two little ends here, put them through the hole, and then flip this little loop around. Put the two ribbons through the loop, and then you want to pull kind of gently and slowly so you don't mess up your ornament top there. So I've got my little loop there in the front, and my two tails are up here. I'm just going to tie a little knot up here at the top. You could also tie a bow. If you want to tie a bow, just give yourself more ribbon. I would cut a piece about 24 inches long if you want to tie a bow. There we go. And now I'm just going to trim up my edges, make a little sharp point. And there we have it. Our little holiday camper ornament is complete. I hope you enjoyed this project, and if you want to see all of the faux leather crafts I've created for this holiday faux leather crafting event, I'll leave a link to a playlist for you. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.